Hey everybody, welcome to Game Mess Mornings with me, Jeff Grubb, your host from giantbomb.com. Thank you for tuning in. In this episode, we're going to be talking about Nintendo finally doing the thing and more. It's going to be a good one because we have Lucas Holland on the show. Lucas, how are you doing?
I am doing fantastic, thank you. I'm a big fan of Giant Bomb, so it feels a bit surreal to be on the other side of things for once, but I'm happy to be here. Yeah, it's great.
I was on your show recently, and then we talked about this. It's like, yeah, let's get you on Game Mess Mornings. So very helpful since everyone else is out. I appreciate it. But yeah, how have you been? You playing anything recently? How are things going with you, Lucas?
I mean, this morning I did see that Mario Kart World got an update, so I have just been trying that out a little bit today. And yeah, obviously, I'm sure we'll talk about that, but it's been one of those of I've been playing Mario Kart World and getting really into the boss rush mode on Metroid Dread. That's been my gaming right now.
Right. Yeah. That's a good move. Everyone, YouTube, refresh YouTube if you're trying to watch it over there. It is going live. It just might be going to a different channel than was already up because it doesn't look like there's a lot of people watching it there. We'll get that fixed up. Yeah, I'm going to dive into that Mario Kart World update myself. I am interested in it and seeing like if I can notice any of the changes. I definitely remember feeling like when I was playing, it's like, yeah, these CPUs are difficult. So I'm going to see how they have toned that down. Also very curious to see just how more frequently we will get those 3-lap courses. Well, again, we'll talk about all that in the news and stuff like that. I continue to be like, all right, Donkey Kong credits are good, so I can move on to something else, and then I just keep playing Donkey Kong. That's been good.
Yeah.
How about you? Did you played a lot of Donkey Kong yet, or what?
No, not yet, but I'm going to visit a few friends to go watch Evo together, just watch the streams and stuff and enjoy some time with that. But I've got maybe 6, 7, 8 hours worth of travel, depending on how the trains go. So I'm just like, you know what? Let's save DK for that and just have a good time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, good move for sure. Lucas, beyond all this, I mean, I guess I've introduced you, but you want to tell people a little bit about yourselves, like what you do in gaming, like about your podcast, things like that?
Yeah. So people may originally have heard my voice as an editor / co-host on the channel Fact Fiend. We then made our own spin-off series called Wiki Weekends, where I'm a co-creator of that channel, and that's where I mainly put out content. I also do streaming on and off, where I mainly do a lot of Nintendo stuff, mainly Zelda and Pokemon related. But then I also just fell into the world of Resident Evil speedrunning at some point with the remakes. So a little dabble here and there in that. But yes, my main kind of output is Wiki Weekends, where we just kind of hopefully have entertaining discussions and create a welcoming community for people to come and enjoy kind of a bunch of discussions on different pop culture stuff like gaming and films and comic books, things like that.
Very cool. Excellent. You know what? Let's explain what we do here then. We're Giant Bomb. We make fun stuff about video games. We're a small crew trying to make it all possible through your support by going to giantbomb.com/join. You do that, become a premium member, get ad-free shows, get some extra goodies. We are working on some more extra goodies right now, actually, trying to get that stuff done and out there for you. But really, your support just helps us make everything else happen. If you want to see us do these cool things, do that. It does make it possible. As far as this show goes, most weekdays, I, Jeff Grubb, will help piece your gaming life back together. That includes breaking news and maybe even some of our own original reporting. For all these topics, I'll get the input of a bona fide expert who will make me look smart. If you are watching live on Twitch, welcome. You can always listen to the show later on podcast feeds by searching for Game Mess Mornings or find the RSS feed on giantbomb.com. You can also catch the show later with chapters and timestamps on YouTube. Hello, YouTube. All right, we have a lot to get into, so let's start the morning mess with Nintendo Direct Partner Showcase set for July 31st. This comes from Sal Romano at Gamatsu, who briefly summarizes what we can expect. Nintendo will host a Nintendo Direct Partner Showcase on July 31st at 6 a.m. Pacific Time, 9 a.m. Eastern. I see why Jan took the week off so you wouldn't have to get up early. Featuring 25 minutes of information on upcoming Switch 2 and Switch 1 games from publishing partners the company announced. You will be able to watch it on YouTube and Nintendo.com. Why does it not say Twitch? It's not going to be on Twitch. guess maybe they don't. Do they not usually do the directs on Twitch? Whatever. Okay, 25 minutes partner showcase. What were you expecting, and is this in line with what you were expecting?
Probably at this point, yeah. I do think that it makes sense with, we kind of know roughly like a game per month from Nintendo at this point for the rest of the year. Things like Age of Imprisonment, we don't know exact dates, so we just have like winter and things like Air Riders as well. But I think it makes sense to just kind of have a partner direct, fill out that kind of rest of the year, make sure that we realistically probably get a lot of ports and switch to upgrades, right?
Yeah, I think that there's been a lot of demand from third parties to just kind of test the waters and beyond, like more than just test the waters. But like, no, we're pretty certain we want to be involved in the Switch 2, and I think Nintendo was trying to like line up the ones that probably had a lot of those specialized versions of those ports for the Switch 2, the ones with the subtitles. I'm struggling to think of anything. The only one that's coming to mind is the Wii U version of that, Batman Armored Edition. There was it was a Hitman World of Assassination Signature Edition, something like that. Although there was a bunch of games like that from third parties on Switch 2 at launch, where the developers and publishers did a little bit of extra work to make sure that those games felt a little bit like bespoke for Switch 2. I'm imagining like this next crop of third-party partnered titles will be a mix of games that are ports but aren't the special versions that we're able to get into that first direct and launch at the launch of the console, and then totally like new, like much newer third-party games. Like I wouldn't be surprised if like we see Elden Ring Night Rain mentioned here, something along those lines. Partially because Nintendo and FromSoft seem to have a really close relationship right now, but also because it seems like that game could work on Switch 2 just fine. So yeah, I'm going in there expecting a lot of third-party support. I do wonder, it's like, man, Nintendo's got to tell us what's going on with so many of its games that are still coming out this year. I mean, we're aware of the games for the most part. We have a general timeline for many of them, either months or whatever, like later this year. Metroid Prime 4, we don't know that much about. It's still just slated for this year, 2025. And I guess if that is coming out in November or December, Lucas, they don't even need to start talking about it quite yet. But I got to say, getting a little antsy over here. Do you feel that, or does this sound like typical Nintendo to you and you're not all that concerned?
I don't think I would say I'm overly concerned, just because they have outlined some games for the year at least. It's not like there's just nothing that we're aware of. It's just more settling down dates and details of games. But I think it makes sense at this point to kind of get a crop of ports along. We know what's coming in, like we've gotten the Nintendo games for July. We know what's coming for August, and then that kind of lines them up for that usual September direct. Yeah.
Good point. Yeah, that when you say it out loud like that, that does feel like what's probably going to happen here. Now, they do have a earnings report with investors. I think it's this week. I think it's later this week, actually. So that would be tomorrow or Friday. I can't nail down exactly in my head, but I know it's happening soon. They're gonna get questions from investors saying, "Hey, what is happening with the release schedule?" So there's a potential that they have some news about some of their own games, and if it's not in this direct, then it is going to be in a Nintendo Today app drop or something along those lines, which they could still do. I think the directs definitely serve a purpose for them of, we do get a lot of eyeballs on this. We do have a lot of partners we want to keep happy and let them know that this is fertile ground for their games, and the directs are part of that. For our own stuff, we want to be a little bit more, we're going to take a scalpel to some of these things and be a little bit more, specific about how we are going to introduce anything. And yeah, I think that probably does happen with Metroid Prime 4 specifically. They're going to just kind of wait until a little bit later this year and have a very bespoke marketing plan for that. Although, in my head, Lucas, I was like, okay, they'll give us the date for Metroid Prime 4 here, and then they'll tell us when Metroid Prime 2 and 3 are going to get ported to Switch 2 now. And it's like, oh man, if they don't do that now, are they going to have enough time when they eventually do start talking about Metroid Prime 4 again? And again, that gets back to my being a little anxious about all this. Okay, so let's get back to the third parties. Are there like specific big games that you think will show up here or anything along those lines?
Yeah, so I definitely think there's a few of the like Steam version games or stream version games, cloud-based games, right? That they had. So like things like Assassin's Creed, Control, Kingdom Hearts 3, like the Resident Evil remakes. I think they're all like prime targets for me in terms of getting actual Nintendo Switch 2 versions, like proper versions of those. And then I think as well, just like going to Capcom, it's like got the RE4 remake that never made it across, and Monster Hunter Wilds. And then I also think you mentioned Night Rain. I don't know how much they want to talk about Night Rain yet if Tarnished Edition isn't out yet.
Yep.
But clearly, yeah, as you said, they've got a comfortable relationship right now with FromSoft. And then I'm curious as to know whether like Square Enix has maybe got more Final Fantasies coming, and whether get kind of like the rumored idea of maybe like a Red Dead 2 coming. So I think there's a lot of options of games that we know run on a PS4 Pro or an Xbox Series S that are now capable of coming over, even if it's not necessarily new games.
Yeah, and it's I'm going to be curious to see like which partners, which third-party companies do show up in this direct, because there is been talk that a lot of companies have struggled to get development hardware even after the Switch 2 came out. A lot were struggling to get it. Now, I think there's like tiers. Obviously, FromSoft clearly has a development kit, and no surprise there. But it's like, okay, is it just going to be a handful of really big third parties that are able to be in this 25-minute direct? And we'll start hearing from a couple tiers down in future directs, or just on their own, releasing games starting next year, because it's going to take time to get things ported over, potentially. So yeah, I'm like ready to kind of see like who Nintendo considers that top tier 1A partner that they want to show off here, and then how much shine they're able to give them. But yeah, I'm think the Switch 2 seems like it's in a pretty good place overall with how people are feeling about. Obviously, the first party games are doing just fine. And the third-party games, I think, are surprising people in terms of like, oh, this is a mostly viable platform for a lot of different kinds of games. The biggest ones, the ones that are going to be coming out next year, that are going to have all of the graphical features turned on and require a ton of horsepower on PC. Okay, maybe those are still going to be struggling to even hit 30 frames per second on the Switch 2 next year. But it's like, how many of those are there really out there anymore? I didn't include a story today from it was a quote from someone who works on The Last of Us saying, yeah, but look, we did it, but we could tell you realistic graphics, realistic visuals are kind of ruining game development timelines. It's kind of a bad thing for that. And I think that's I didn't include it because, boy, that's an obvious thing, I think. And I think a lot of developers would echo that, which is why many developers don't try to do games as realistic and with high fidelity graphics as The Last of Us. So I think we're probably hitting a sweet spot where the Switch 2 is pretty close to being able to have a lot of third-party games that will release this year, next year, maybe even the year after that without any issues, at least for the vast majority of releases. So now it's just up to Nintendo to shout that, capitalize on it, make people feel like, yeah, I can play the next EA game on here. Although EA might be one of those companies that is a little bit lagging on getting games onto the Switch 2. Let me ask, do you think Battlefield 6 is on Switch 2?
Oh, that's a difficult one.
That's a difficult one, right? It's weird.
Yeah, I think with the amount that Battlefield have had kind of, the notoriety for pushing tech, that might be one of those games where they don't want to have it limited by the Switch 2, and it might be one of those few examples.
Yep. Yeah. We'll get more information about that this week as well. Battlefield 6. I don't think they've said anything about Switch one way or the other. So if it does come to Switch, I guess I always expected it would happen later. But right now, I doubt they're thinking about it at all. They probably have like bigger fish to fry of, let's just get that thing up and running and successful on PC, and we'll go from there.
I mean,
yeah, go ahead.
They've got to get as many places as they want if they want to hit that 100 million players that they're talking about.
Yeah, good point. God, 100 million players. And to me, that's like you only really get to that number if you're also on mobile. So I wonder if like that Battle Royale version that they have of that thing, or allegedly have of that thing, will also be on mobile in some way. We'll see. All right. Yeah. Let's move along here. The war over credit cards censoring games is just getting started. This is from Ethan Gotch at Kotaku. Gilbert Martinez has just poured himself a glass of water and was pacing his suburban home in San Antonio, Texas, while trying to navigate MasterCard's Byzantine customer service hotline. The story kind of talks about something that a lot of people have been talking about online right now, which is calling up MasterCard and trying to get them to answer for their actions of caving into pressure from religious groups and Christo-fascists about censoring porn games on Steam and itch.io to the point where it's also caught a lot of other games that maybe would even be considered porn games. And people are finding that this is it's difficult to really tie up MasterCard, although it's like something around 8,000 calls a day. Some people are reporting from people trying to push back against the anti-porn crusaders. The thing here, though, is like it feels like, okay, so yeah, gamers are pretty good at getting loud and shouting at companies, and a lot of times that's, you know, to the detriment of our community. But it's like, okay, well, we have some practice at this, and so we'll maybe we can implement it in something of a positive way. And so far, that seems to be manifesting in a decent way. But I do wonder, like, will we be able to sustain this? Because there's one thing about the people on the other side of this issue, the people that are pro-censorship of gaming, they don't have any hobbies. They'll just keep doing this forever. They just see red and they go after it, and they'll be able to keep the pressure on. And they're also well-funded by those Christo-fascist groups and things like that. If gamers sort of fizzle out here, this is probably going to be something that doesn't go away. So will we be able to maintain the pressure is the question. And that remains to be seen, but I'm definitely curious about it. I want to keep bringing this story up, Lucas, because it's like it's not going to just go away on its own. People are going to have to kind of stand up. How have you felt about this? Where is this at for you? Like, what's your assessment of the censorship of games on stores like Steam and itch.io?
I mean, ultimately, I think just overall, it's a bad thing for the state of gaming. But I think there's also the more complex issue, which isn't, outright talked about, where this is, as you mentioned on previous podcasts, like this is not just about like adult games. This is about coming after, the LGBTQ community and having those side effects that are intentional from places like Collective Shout, but they don't need to outright say it. It just happens to have that side effect in the first place. And as much as, I think that we should have the choice to buy whatever we want, adult content or not, I do think that especially that is like the most like scary and damaging part of this.
Yeah. And it's like there are going to be false positives caught in this for sure. But even beyond that, like I'm just not interested in having anything banned by a credit card company. And like, it's already happening. The games getting caught in this that clearly shouldn't be, games that are clearly artistic commentary. People point out Vile Exhumed, which I've not played, but as far as I've read, it's like this horror game from an indie studio that specifically is about exploring toxicity in fandoms, and that can have relates to sexual topics, but also deeply relates to misogyny. And that game is now, you can't buy that game. And that's deeply frustrating to me. And so, whether or not these countermeasures are going to be able to work is I kind of see how, I struggle to see how it wouldn't. Because if MasterCard is responding to someone just being like, hey, we're going to be real mad at you if you keep taking this money, and then a huge backlash comes and says, what are you doing? No, you can't tell us how to spend our money. To me, that's like equivalent. And the credit card company should then side on the side of, well, these people are saying don't censor things, and then we keep taking their money. That seems pretty good to us. But I don't know if things are that logical these days. I don't know if things are that easy. And how deep does a group like Collective Shout, the Australian anti-porn group, have their fingers dug into a credit card company? I think it's probably deeper than we even realize or even know, where it's like, oh, it could very easily be the case that it's not just this external group exerting pressure. This external group has people working at these companies that is completely sympathetic to their ideals and is helping to spread that stuff internally. And how do you remove that? That is something that you kind of much more difficult to fight against. So as people are calling up the MasterCard, they are finding themselves like struggling to find anybody who will hear them out once they start saying, "Hey, we wish you wouldn't censor things." They get sent around to different departments, and oops, your call got dropped. But I think that I think gamers are well aware of these kinds of strategies and are unlikely to back down because of that. And they know that really just being annoying is the solution here to a certain extent, and tying up those, like physically tying up the phone lines so that it costs these companies money, will eventually catch the attention of someone. Whether or not that changes things, again, we'll have to wait and see. It does feel though like, okay, maybe this is a good place where Collective Shout was probably going to continue to try to go from one target to the next, and now actually the battlefield has been stopped here, and they're going to have to continue to deal with this as the pushback has now been like fully declared and defined. And so maybe at the very least, this is a serious obstruction and roadblock to the continued censorship that people are concerned about. Does that sound right to you?
I mean, yeah, for sure. Like, as you say, tying them up and getting them stopped in this process would certainly help them moving on, right? And I remember, I think it was a few years ago, they came after like adult sites as well, like
Yes.
sex worker sites like OnlyFans and things like this. And I believe that ended up getting reversed from a lot of pushback. So it's not to say that it can't happen. I don't know whether that was to do with Collective Shout specifically and how much their influence might change this equation. But I definitely, I do think it's important to like keep bringing this topic up because, as you say, the kind of other side of this is that we let this be a news story of the week and fizzle out, and then all of a sudden we don't have any power within this dynamic anymore.
Yeah, and there's people in chat like, hey, like, can we have like a real conversation about the ability for kids to get some of these games? And it's like, yeah, for sure. For me in my home, I have Steam. I have some adult games in my Steam account that I like, and I was sharing my Steam account as family sharing, and it's like, oh, I just blacklist a bunch of games that this whole category cannot be shared. So I take some responsibility for that, but it's like, they're that's not every household's like mine, where I'm a savvy parent. I know how this stuff works. And so, I think people revert to, well, you have to be 18 to get a credit card. And it's like, well, you can go to the store and buy a Steam gift card. Could a kid go do that?
Yeah.
I think, Lucas, I would probably be okay. And if there's people who are like, no, actually, no, even this is a slippery slope, but I would hear that out. But I think in my mind, when I initially think about it, I would be okay with the idea of you can't buy 18 plus rated games with the cash you put into a gift card at CVS or something like that. Maybe that's not a perfect solution, but it's like, oh, there's compromises to be made here with people who have concerns. I'm willing to have the conversation with reasonable people. Blanket censorship, though, is not the answer.
No, exactly. That's not the reasonable side. That's not the actual like faithful discussion. These are not the people that want to have a discussion in good faith. They want
Absolutely
to
not.
Just slap their power around and make sure that they're the ones who get exactly what they want. And as you say, maybe there's other ways to put that in place. I wouldn't be against the idea of only being able to buy adult games with a specifically like credit cards or debit cards. And I think there's definitely ways to try and make it work better than it is at the moment. But I also do think that it's not wrong to ask people to have some level of personal responsibility when it comes to their own children as well.
Definitely not.
A lot of people, might not like that statement, but that's the way I see it personally.
Yep. Yeah. And I don't think, if we sat down at a table with Collective Shout and offered up any sort of compromise, I don't think that would actually get us anywhere. So it's like this is a conversation we save for later, when it's us adults having real conversations among ourselves, and these effectively children screaming because of their shame, their internalized guilt and shame. We just have to say, no, you're actually not welcome at the table. You've shown yourself to be too irresponsible, and you want to make your problem everyone else's problem. We're gonna stop you, then set you aside, and then we'll go solve this on our own. And I think that's really the only way we can handle this going forward.
Yeah, I think it says a lot that kind of their name in general is collective shout. Like,
Yeah.
they don't want to have a conversation; they want to shout at us, right?
Yep. And they want to dictate things. And yeah, at the end of the day, it's fascism. It's and it has to be just dealt with and stopped and cut out like cancer.
Yeah.
All right. Let's take a break. We're going to go to an ad break, which you can skip out on if you go to giantbomb.com/premium. We'll be right back after this. All right, we are back. It's Game Mess Mornings. I'm Jeff Grubb. That's Lucas Holland. We're getting back into the news with Elden Ring's two-player mode patch has been delayed due to tsunami warnings. This is from Jordan Midler at VGC. This was supposed to launch on Thursday, the two-player mode, which was much requested by players. But yesterday, overnight, there was an 8.8 magnitude earthquake off the coast of Russia that caused a ton of tsunami warnings on every coast in the Pacific, essentially. Now, that has the tsunami has hit a lot of places, and it was about a meter high. Very dangerous still for a lot of places. A lot of places do not have the infrastructure to put up with the tsunami even that high. But I tried to look at the news this morning to see just is this as tragic as some tsunamis have been. As far as I can tell, looks like most people have been spared, thankfully. But as soon as I saw this news, it was like, first of all, hope everyone's okay. And then because, the direct had been on my mind, it's like, oh, I bet they'll just cancel the direct because Japan's history with tsunamis, they're just not even going to want to risk it. But I think what happened is they saw that it's like, okay, we can mostly handle what has happened here. And so the direct is still happening. But FromSoft is like, you know what, we're just going to let our employees get out of here. Because at a certain point, even if the actual effect, which again, I don't have full knowledge of what has happened everywhere, but even if in Japan it hit and it didn't do any fatal damage anywhere, there's so much trauma related to tsunamis in Japan that I would do the same thing of if you're actually take the rest of the week off, go somewhere where you feel safe and secure, deal with this stuff, process it. We'll come back next week. And I don't blame anyone for doing that. But as far as we could tell, it looks like on the west coast of the United States, tsunami warnings were downgraded significantly, except for in Northern California, which is, of course, where I have a lot of friends, including, I think, Dan and Mike are there right now. So hopefully they're staying back away from the shore. But yeah, this is the kind of thing where you see this and it's like, yeah, this is the right move, right? If your employees are feeling any sort of trauma at all, just let them take the time off, correct?
Yeah, totally. I'd hope it goes without saying, really. Video games, they're fun. They're not that important. People's lives are far more important, and you should, even if it's not a massive safety risk. I'm not sure, again, how much they've specifically been impacted, but just the idea of trying to put a patch above your own employees is ridiculous.
Yep, it's just such an easy thing to do, where it's like, what, and I bet the leadership feels the same way. They're like, what, we just also feel this, so let's just do the right thing here and let everyone know that you're more important if you're working on this game than putting out a patch, especially a patch that can come out next week. It would be what's the difference at a certain point? So I think there was probably a little bit more of this than we have even heard about of developers, employees in Japan just been like, yep, let's worry about our people first, and that's just fine with me. But yeah, I think they are. Let's see, have they re-announced when this will come? Yeah, the patch will now be released on. Okay, so yeah, it was supposed to come out today, actually. My bad. And now it's coming out. It is coming out tomorrow, Thursday, July 31st. So coming out one day later. There you go.
Yeah, yep. Yeah. I can't imagine many people being mad at that, right?
No, and I don't think I haven't seen any backlash. Everyone sort of gets it, especially for Japan, where it's just like, you think about Fukushima and all that stuff, and yeah, harrowing things have happened in countries like that with tsunamis. Okay, someone just reminded me, Ninja Gaiden Ragebound reviews. I've been playing Ninja Gaiden Ragebound quite a bit. And it rules. It's awesome. It's very good. Let's go ahead. Let's go to OpenCritic real quick and see how it's doing. It's got an 86 on OpenCritic. Let's see how many reviews is that. Quite a few have come in. Let's read this one here from Austin Souther at TechRaptor, who gave it a 9.5 out of 10 and said Ninja Gaiden Ragebound is an adrenaline-pumping action platformer with killer pixel art and fast-paced gameplay. Levels are challenging, especially in hard mode, and bosses are not to be underestimated. Stages feel dynamic and always have something new to offer, so I was hooked from the start to the finish. Let's see, Worth Playing's Chris Adam DeAngelis gave it a 9 out of 10 and said Ninja Gaiden Ragebound is a pitch-perfect revival of the NES classics. It captures the same fun run and slash feel of the original games while modernizing enough to be exciting to play, whether you're a returning fan or a newcomer. The fantastic soundtrack and excellent graphics elevate it and make the entire package shine. The closest thing I can come to a complaint is the somewhat low difficulty level, and that is more in comparison to the franchise as a whole, rather than this game being too easy. If you're a fan of action platformers or a Ninja Gaiden fan in general, you'll find a ton to love in Ragebound. Let's see if we can find a lower review, a slightly more critical one. GameSpew gave it a 7 out of 10. This is Richard Seagrave, who says Ninja Gaiden Ragebound is a genuinely challenging action game with lovely visuals and rewarding fast-paced gameplay. It feels a bit rough in places, though, and often borders on being simply too chaotic for its own good. Assist options mean that anyone can see the journey through to its end, but better balancing or difficulty levels would have been preferred. So I wonder if like hard mode is something you unlock later, because the earlier review mentioned that. I just kind of turned this on, started playing, and immediately was like, yeah, this feels like what a Ninja Gaiden revival should feel like. You run, you slice the sword, you can knock the shurikens out of the air, you can clutch onto the wall, do wall jumps, you can climb up the wall, and it all just feels right. And then it also feels like they have smoothed out the edges that are not necessary to preserve, where it's like they did like the sampling effect. They sampled all of the most important elements of Ninja Gaiden and then recreated it here. And then in the upscaling of those samplings to like rebuilding Ninja Gaiden for a modern audience, they did so through the lens of modern gameplay sensibilities. And so I just think it's a really extremely playable version of a 2D Ninja Gaiden game, which I always love. Now, I do remember the Ninja Gaiden games being relatively difficult, especially at the end with like the boss battles, and there was waves of boss fights one after another at the end of those games, and it was like nearly impossible for me as a kid. So it's like I'm interested in maybe playing this game on hard mode to recreate that feeling, because that is what I associate with Ninja Gaiden. But I think most people are going to be able to turn this game on and immediately have a pretty good time, especially if you have any affinity for NES action run and slash platformers. Is that you, Lucas Holland? Is Ninja Gaiden a game that you're interested in?
So I've been more of a fan of like the 3D games, because
yeah, sure, absolutely, I was
closer to like growing up with them. But I'm definitely a fan of kind of like the more modern style, like action platformer games that are, very retro feeling and go back to those NES days. Like I think the first one I really got into in the kind of more indie modern side of things was Shovel Knight, which just, I don't think it needs to be said, but what a fantastic game. And like just looking at the trailer for Ninja Gaiden Ragebound, the moment you say it feels right, it's like that's all I needed, because that trailer sold me in 20 seconds.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And I think that for people that did grow up with the 3D Ninja Gaiden games, this is still going to have a lot of the elements of like making you feel cool, just establishing that the ninja character has some awesome stuff going on. And then you get to experience maybe some of the stuff that you maybe looked at the original Ninja Gaiden games, like, oh, this is Tecmo's early example of having kind of cool cutscenes at the beginning of their games or whatever. And they recreate all that stuff here and try to, in fact, they like almost recreate it 1-to-1 in a lot of situations, and that rules. It's just kind of cool to see that Ninja Gaiden opening up on the NES with those cutscenes was like, oh my god, I cannot believe what I'm seeing as an 8-year-old or whatever I was. And so for them to like treat that as something important and have a reverence for it has owned. And this is the Blasphemous devs. I think that's another side of this that I love, Lucas, of an indie studio has success, but it's not like an earth-shattering success like a Minecraft or whatever, where it's or even like a Hollow Knight, where it's like, okay, the person that made the people that made Hollow Knight, they have a game that continues to sell. They've probably made a decent chunk of change on that, and that should be their focus. Blasphemous was successful. People played it. But these are going to be working developers that are going to have to continue making games to be able to fund their lives for the rest of their lives. And now the industry is kind of like caught on that you can go catch these devs and say, hey, make one of the games for us. Make a Ninja Gaiden for us. And, and whether that's the way it worked or the studio pitched, Tecmo on this or however it worked, the fact that they were able to take an indie studio, take an existing legacy IP, put them together, and get a game out relatively quickly is a really good sign to me. I want a ton more of this. We've had some of it, but it never felt like, and that became a normalized thing in the industry where, oh yeah, of course, an indie studio has a hit, and now all these big publishers want to work with them on one of their games. I think it was mostly like, that's kind of too small fish for us. We're not interested in a small indie game. And these days, I think publishers are actually much more in tune with the audience, like really wanting that stuff, especially for a franchise like Ninja Gaiden that is going to have a major 3D game later this year. And it's like, this is a great way to keep it at the top of people's minds. Does this feel like something that could happen more frequently to you?
I mean, I think I've been hoping that this kind of thing would happen for a while, considering that, one of my favorite examples of this is Cadence of Hyrule, where, Nintendo came to the Crypt of the Necrodancer developers and was like, we love this, make a Zelda game for us. And I cannot believe that we are in a state years later where no Nintendo franchise has had that happen again.
It was such a beautiful moment, wasn't it? Where it's like, okay, Nintendo gets it. We're gonna get 50 of these, and we're gonna get the Way Forward remake of Zelda 2, and it's gonna rule. And I can't wait to play it. And they still have never done that. I look, Nintendo's going to continue to be the weird one not the weird one, but one of the weird ones that is just not going to follow up with such a good idea. That Crypt of the Necrodancer Zelda game was fantastic. God, that music's very good. Shout out to Danny B.
So good.
Yeah, I'm going to put that soundtrack on later. I'm actually just like craving it now. But it's like, yeah, that was awesome. They should have done a million more of those, and they didn't. But meanwhile, okay, this is cool. The Blasphemous devs, Blasphemous 2 did do very well. And people want to work with them, and this is just more work for them. So, yeah, this has worked out, I think, great for everyone. And in the end, we get a game that people seem to really, really like, including myself. We'll get a quick look of Ninja Gaiden Ragebound up very soon, everybody.
Nice, yeah. I think it's a great way to try and keep a franchise alive without having to bank on 5+ years dev cycles of these massive bets. Yeah. It's just do little things and keep people like aware of your franchise and just pluck out a game every few years. Yeah,
it's just sprinkle some stuff in. Like clearly the main thrust for a lot of these major publishers is going to be massive games that can have massive returns. I think all we're asking is in the intervening 5 to 6 years, work with someone else, sprinkle some other stuff in for a lot of these franchises, or it doesn't have to be like existing franchises. Give another studio a chance to do something with your money, so that you are releasing more than just one game every 5 to 6 years. That's all we're asking for, and it seems clearly like it can work. And there are a ton of talented developers out there that fully understand how to do this now.
I mean, a great example is Joseph Fares with the EA Originals, right?
Yeah.
Look where they've gone from back in A Way Out and Brothers, and now Split Fiction's one of the biggest games of the year, and It Takes Two was Game of the Year winner at the Game Awards.
Yep. It's people are clearly starting to figure out other avenues other than just make the biggest game that's ever been made. Speaking of which, with Battlefield 6 coming, EA reiterates that it has no plans to charge $80 for games. This is from Eddie McCoo at GameSpot. With Battlefield 6's big multiplayer reveal set for July 31st, that's tomorrow, everybody, and pre-orders rumored to open the same day, many are wondering if EA will charge $80 for the game's standard edition. That remains to be seen, but new commentary from EA CEO Andrew Wilson suggests it may not happen. We're not looking to make any changes on pricing at this stage, Wilson said during an earnings call, as reported by IGN. The executive added that EA already offers a fairly broad pricing scheme across its many releases, including free-to-play, paid, and deluxe editions. Our orientation is always to capture the full spectrum of pricing so that we can serve players in the best way possible and offer them the greatest value, he said. We'll continue to look at opportunities to deliver great value to our players through various pricing schemes over the course of time, but no dramatic changes planned yet. During EA's previous earnings call 3 months ago, Wilson said much the same thing when asked about $80 games, so his new comments are no surprise. A European leak recently suggested Battlefield 6's standard edition would cost €80, which would be about $94. But EA has yet to make any official announcements. If pre-orders do in fact open on July 31st, we should find out soon. I could easily see, Lucas, that some new information has been revealed to many of these publishers in the last few months, like some piece of economic data, some piece of consumer data that has caused them to maybe balk at the idea of $80 games. Now, yes, in 3 months ago, Andrew Wilson was sounding the same tune, so maybe it was never under consideration, but the rumored price is there. But recently we've had several games that were rumored to be $80 actually end up coming out at $70, and that's Borderlands 4 being the primary one there. And then there were games that were actually $80 that got reduced back down to $70. Those are all the Microsoft games coming out later this year, including Outer Worlds 2 and Call of Duty. And I think even if you're EA and you're like, oh no, we didn't see anything there was any reason why we can't charge $80 for Battlefield. That might have been the case until you saw Call of Duty wasn't going to be $80. Call of Duty can't be $70 and Battlefield $80. That just wouldn't work, right?
No, it wouldn't at all. And we're in this kind of trepidatious period where clearly a lot of publishers want to punt on the $80, and other than Mario Kart, no one's been able to make it work yet. And I just think EA are happy to take the kind of perceived win on this for now.
Exactly.
Well, just, oh, hey, no, we're going to be the good guys. Don't worry, we'll only do $80 when everybody else does. And in the meantime, they can charge $100 for the deluxe editions and the early access, and every game doesn't sell for just $70, microtransactions and all that jazz.
Yeah, it's $80 clearly still coming, but I think how much is that going to really affect the people who legitimately buy a lot of games? Because the people who buy a lot of games, they're all on Deku deals. They're all on various websites looking for ways to save as much money as possible. And they are very, very savvy. They're very in tune to the timing that each company kind of goes with when it comes down to price reductions. It's like, oh, Ubisoft, I know I can wait because I can wait this out and it'll be affordable on a timeline that I fully understand and can wait and can accept. And EA might be a little bit different, but I bet the people who do tend to buy a lot of games are like, no, EA kind of goes on this general timeline. And yeah, sure, maybe it's a little bit longer than a Ubisoft, but I'm not going to pay $80 for this. And so you're just capturing your most dedicated fans up front at $80. And that's a lot of people still, millions of people, in fact. And that's a lot of money. But maybe that's not the concern right now. If your concern is to get this game to 100 million players, you don't need to be spending your energy in the first couple of months justifying why it's $80. You probably want to just be like, here is the $70 version. Here's the $150 deluxe edition. You can play a week early. That has worked every time. No one's complaining about that anymore, really. People are buying it, and so the argument is sort of passed. And then if they allegedly do have this free-to-play version of the Battle Royale, that seems to be what Wilson's alleging, or trying to allude to, that we have a price spectrum. We're going to have something for the people that want free-to-play, and we're going to have something that at the premium price. That sounds like the strategy they're really focused on here. And $80 would probably only be a distraction to that. So I think I tend to believe that this game will come out at $70. And that begs the question, Lucas, when do you think 80 does become the norm? Is it as early as next year? Because they tried this year, and that doesn't seem to have taken.
I think with GTA 6 at the moment being labeled for May next year, I think around that time is when people are going to pull the trigger, or at least try to again, because obviously it's GTA, it's multi-platform, it's not one game by Nintendo, and it's going to be obviously a massive seller regardless of how much that game launches for. And I was kind of expecting EA's first bite of this to be college football this year, but that's a game that doesn't seem to need to do much to sell like gangbusters, whereas a Battlefield 6, I just don't think it can happen because this game is a hard sell to people already, let alone trying to get an extra $10 out of everyone.
Yeah, there are people who already know they want Battlefield 6, and that is not 100 million people. So if EA is like looking at the the list of potential people that are interested in this game, I think you're right. I think it falls off a cliff, I think, pretty quickly, of the people who know they want this game and are just going to get it no matter what at launch because this is their shit. And then that next group of people who are like considering it, people who play a lot of shooters, boy, they have more options than ever. It's a hard sell, I think, is a little bit of an understatement, even, Lucas, of like, because are these people who even buy the games anymore because they have so many free to play options and they're so varied and fill so many niches and their friends are already playing those. They might not even be considering buying anything in this genre right now. So, yeah, going to be tough for Battlefield. All right, let's keep going here. That Mario Kart World update is out. This is from Ethan Gotch at Kotaku. Nintendo just reversed course on one of its most controversial changes to Mario Kart World. Sorta. The Switch 2 maker had just buffed the appearance rate of 3-lap courses after previously nuking a sneaky workaround players had been exploiting to avoid the new game's in-between driving sections. Somehow, that's not even the biggest change in the game's first major update since launch. The Switch 2's biggest exclusive is back on the menu. Mario Kart World version 1.2.0 includes new features, lots of game tweaks, and some massive rebalancing. One thing that might bring back some lapsed players is this patch note. Increase the frequency of lap-type courses appearing in the section when choosing the next course in Versus Race and wireless races. Fans are taking that to mean that the traditional 3-lap stages will be more frequent, including when playing online. A big criticism of the game has been throwing lots of straightaways, interstitial courses into the mix that just have players racing between the actual tracks they want to play on. When Mario Kart World first released, choosing random while playing online automatically removed these tracks from the selection pool. The community's preference was so strong, it became common to see all 24 players in a race choose the random option. Let's see. Let's jump here to this other thing. This is another patch note. They made computer players weaker in everything other than battle. Reads a major change that's already rippling throughout the community, with fans unsure whether to embrace the difficulty nerf or call for an unofficial hard mode to return. Grand Prix and knockout races could get pretty gnarly at 150cc. A 200cc mode doesn't exist in the game yet, though many suspect it will get added at some point. That's where I'm at, Lucas. I want 200cc to be the hard mode. I like 200cc. Yeah. I know a lot of people don't. It's too fast. I think embrace the brake button, everybody. I know it feels blasphemous to use a brake button in Mario Kart, and 200cc using the brake button is legitimately fun. And that's where I want to see like the most challenging computer players is trying to get all first place on 200cc. That's a really, really tough thing to do in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. And I imagine it'd be even difficult here after they've really made some improvements to how well the computer players can play. It's my opinion. I think 150cc should kind of be, it should be hard, but it shouldn't be like what it has been, which is like, man, these computer players are doing things I can't even do. So I overall, I'm a big fan of a lot of these changes. I'm curious to see how this 3-track race change actually functions in reality. But you said you spent some time with it. How are you finding it so far?
Yeah, so I only maybe had like an hour with it today because the patch is only just released. But, I did want maybe like 4 or 5 online races. And I think maybe 3 of those had options to do the 3-lap races, which seems to be a little bit of a buff compared to what it was in the previous patch. And then I did like a Grand Prix and a knockout tour. And as somebody on 150cc, it was relatively challenging. It wasn't ridiculous or anything, but the thing I was really struggling to get was those 3 stars on the gold wins. And it definitely feels a lot more achievable now, especially in Knockout Tour, where you had to be in first place on Knockout Tour every single checkpoint. And with the amount of mayhem going on in those first couple of checkpoints with 20, 24 players, it felt so difficult to be able to get that momentum early on and try and maintain it throughout the entire race. But yeah, that definitely felt a little bit more achievable. And I've seen a few other people do early tests with the online races and say maybe like 2 out of 3 times they seem to be getting a choice for the 3-lap races, which is definitely more encouraging than not. But I just think give us our options of what we want to do.
Yeah, that it does feel like the game is limited on enabling you to customize your play style in any sort of in a lot of the online modes. Like the I think they added like one new option when you're playing with computer players locally for the item types. It's like mushroom only is now an option. When you go play online, it's like there's frantic and normal items. You can't, like, even for a private room, you can't like go in there and select individual items that you want. Now, that's not necessarily something that I'm doing very frequently when I'm playing with friends or even have the desire to do. But I still think, like, I don't know. I think back to the way Perfect Dark worked on the N64, where the multiplayer options were like, you can adjust every little thing in here. And at a certain point, I'm like, I thought that should be the default. That should be the standard. Let us kind of have control over these games. And Mario Kart is on the other end of that spectrum with World, where they don't give you a lot of customizable options across the board. And even when you are playing an option that isn't online or matchmaking or anything along those lines, and that's annoying.
It's very annoying, yeah. Like, you kind of maybe think back to Time Splitters talking about Perfect Dark, obviously similar teams going over to Time Splitters, and there were just so many customization options, and they should be there. And the fact that it's not for Mario Kart is it's infuriating. I don't really use many of those like item toggles, but they're all in there in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, so why not here?
Yep. All right, there's a report the Xbox ROG Ally pre-orders will go live during Gamescom. This is from Alex Hopley at Game Reactor. It appears that the Xbox ROG Ally and Ally X could be heading to pre-order next month. The handheld gaming consoles were first properly revealed over at Summer Game Fest, with no release date given besides them arriving in the holiday period of 2025. Now, as per Deal Labs, it appears we may now know when we might be able to get our hands or get our orders in for the Xbox ROG Ally X and Ally. The Reliable Leaker site has posted that the 20th of August is when pre-orders will go live, which is also the day that Gamescom kicks off properly. Xbox usually has a pretty big presence at Gamescom. They are going to have one this year. I think that includes like a stage presentation of sorts. But they are going to have a lot of games there. So they'll have some news announcements to make, and this is probably one of them. This thing's probably out November-ish, holiday time, like they said. Pricing, we still haven't got exact pricing, although we've heard the rumors a bunch of times now. We remember pricing around like $600 for the Ally, and the Ally X up to $1,000. I am curious about one of these things. Tell you, if they don't, send me one for my job, Lucas, I don't know if I'm going to rush out and get one, because I would want the Ally X, and I don't know if I could justify spending $1,000 on it, especially when I'm like looking around and it's like, oh, Steam Deck 2 could be out pretty soon. Switch 2 is doing just fine by me. So $1,000 is going to be tough to justify. Where are you at with PC handhelds in general and the Xbox ROG Ally in particular?
I'm intrigued by the idea of them. I don't own a PC handheld, but I really do get the appeal of having both a Steam library and like an Xbox linked library on the go. That does sound very appealing, but for that price point, as you said, the Switch 2 is doing fine, and I'm going to have plenty of games to play on that. And it's just $1,000 is a lot to ask for the premium version. And realistically, I think most people that are going to be interested in these devices, they want that premium experience. And I think Xbox has got a lot to do to sell this to us, especially on like kind of the interface side. I know like a lot of people talk about just kind of how Windows doesn't work very well on these devices, and it's a big stopping point, and I think that's going to be a big decision maker for people. Yeah,
I was just last night trying to sign my kid in to YouTube, because she's been using the original Asus ROG Ally for a long time now to play Minecraft. And then last night she's like, I'm kind of tired. I don't want to play a game right now. But can I have a device to like just watch YouTube? And I'm like, okay, sure. Well, you could just use the ROG Ally. And we went on the internet, the Edge, their browser or whatever. I didn't want to download a new browser, and was going to sign into YouTube and trying to input her email address for her YouTube account. And I'm like writing it in, and so I write and I see the name pops up, the full thing pops up, and she's got a relatively long email address. The whole thing pops up, and I just try to click on it to automatically enter in that, and the thing goes to the next screen, and it just has e@gmail.com, which is the one letter I wrote to get. And I'm like, what the okay, maybe I just misclicked. I go back, I try it like 5 times. It never works. I have to just type the whole thing. That is the Windows experience on handhelds in general, of you have something that seems like it should work and it never actually quite works. And that happens all the time with password fields, with just navigating the interface in general, and it's miserable. And then trying to update the thing with the 3 different apps, you need to update everything, and it's just this lengthy process, and it's to restart a bunch of times for each individual app. It's troublesome. Now, the reason that they're doing the Xbox ROG Ally is, apparently, ostensibly, specifically to address these problems, to make Windows better on handhelds. I don't think I have the faith in their ability to do that. And even if they do, SteamOS is already there for me for the most part. Now, let's be real. There are a lot of games that people want to play that are a little bit more challenging to play on SteamOS. So clearly Windows is going to have a place in this ecosystem, and a lot of people just don't have the same issues with the problems that I do, and they've gotten over it because now they can play their Xbox Game Pass games, and that's much more convenient to them. So this is not going to go away, but boy, I hope they are as serious about addressing these issues as they claim to be, because I don't want Windows to be anywhere near the default in the handheld gaming PC space unless it gets its act together. And like I said, I don't have faith that they're going to be able to do that.
No.
All right, let's do these last couple of stories. The Pokemon trading card game Pocket also plagiarized the fan art. That's just a tradition now for game developers. This is from Alana Higgs at Nintendo Life. They deeply apologized for the error, which affects the Ho-Oh EX 3-star and Lugia EX 3-star cards drawn by Sai Nanahara. I'm sorry, it's hard for me to follow all this. What I understand here is they had some placement art that was made by a fan, and they used that on the cards, and then the cards actually got put into the game with that art in there. So they are going to pull the entire expansion, address this, and then relaunch it. I guess I see how this happens, but this is such a dangerous thing after like Bungie's reputation got really trashed after doing it multiple times, that you gotta have processes in place to deal with this, right? You have to have protections, and that's what they're saying. They're going to go back and increase their protections, but I kind of don't know how you don't have that stuff in place from the start, because stealing people's art is a serious thing that can really damage your company, right?
Yeah, and it's very blatant when I looked at the images. It's not something that can kind of be argued around. It just pretty much is one for one in the parts of the artwork that they took. And I just think, especially with something like the Pokemon Company, where they have 30 years of reference to pull from for a lot of these monsters, just why is there need to use placement art of somebody else's artwork?
Yep. Yeah, it's because you have your own artwork. Yeah, exactly. It's crazy. Okay, so I'm reading the thing here. After internal review, we discovered that the card production team provided incorrect materials as official documents to the illustrator commissioned to create these cards. The art has been replaced in-game with a temporary placeholder. So they didn't take down the whole thing. Apparently, it's just like these 2 cards now have blank slates on them or something. That's fun. So just says, quote, temporary placeholder. That actually rules. I wish people could just keep that. I want to
get one of those cards.
I know. Yeah, exactly. That would be way better. And then finally, Switch Online Super Nintendo update happened, and it upgraded the CRT filter. It looks really nice. But if you saw an update to Switch Online's Super Nintendo thing, it wasn't just Mario Paint. They also updated it with a better CRT filter, which is great to see, because I like using those, especially when they're pretty good like this one is. Okay. Yeah. Let's see here. Let's get to the poll question from earlier this week. I got that. Actually, while I get that set up, Lucas Holland, why don't you tell people one more time where they can find you on the internet, what you have going on, and all that good stuff?
Yeah, so as I say, the main place where I'm at is Wiki Weekends on YouTube. And I think as of today, we're releasing a podcast with Jordan Breeding on, where we talk about the very relevant film, I Know What You Did Last Summer. And then over on the weekend, I'm releasing a video on Smallville. So on Sunday, that'll be coming out. And yeah, it was a community voted decision of like which Superman topic should I talk about. I forgot how long American TV shows were, so I committed to season 1, and within a week spent 20 hours of my life watching Smallville. So to go down to like a 1-hour video from 20 hours of that watching, hopefully, go give that a check out. It would be very appreciated for my time.
That sounds fantastic. Excuse me, I just sneezed. Yeah, the 24 to 26 episodes. My brother really likes Smallville, and I think he got me the DVD collection for the first season. I ended up watching quite a bit of that show, but it's a commitment for sure. Looking forward to that. When are these coming out? Did you say when exactly they'll be out?
So the podcast with Jordan on I Know What You Did Last Summer, that should be later today, and then over on like kind of Sunday evening UK time, so probably more like daytime for the Smallville video over in America. But yeah,
fantastic. All right. Got our poll question. This one is from Monday. Are you going to try that skate beta? 75% said no. 25% said yes. I think that there's 1 out of 4 people being like, yeah, I'm going to check out this thing. That's pretty good for any sort of beta. Now it's just up to that game to impress people, and I'll be curious to see what people think. I think there's been a murmur from people who have been in the skate alphas and tests for a long time now, where it's like, we're not so sure about this, and no one's like explicitly saying that. Some people are, but like people that have murmured this to me, just like, I don't know, but games can tend to come together in the last minute, so hopefully that's what's going to happen here. I'm gonna hopefully find out for myself. We'll see. New poll question: do we get that Metroid Prime 4 release date at the Partner Direct tomorrow? I expect most people to go no because it's a Partner Direct, and I'm with you, but I want to see if anyone's holding out hope. So, yep, you can vote on that. We'll get the results. We'll talk about it on Game Mess Mornings here on Giant Bomb tomorrow. That will be after the Direct happens. So this is how it'll go. We'll do a talk over for the Direct, then we'll get set up for Game Mess Mornings, come back and run it all down. We'll get those results. As far as other things happening on Giant Bomb, we'll have Delight Club later today. I'm going to play some 007 Everything or Nothing, which is the punishment game that Dan gave me for beating us when we played. I forget what we even played. But Tony Hawk, right? He beat us in Tony Hawk, and so he gave us each a punishment. Mike is playing Outer Wilds right now and having a great time with that. I'm going to try Everything or Nothing, go from there. I think I vaguely remember maybe renting that game once, so we'll see. And then tomorrow we'll be back with our normal schedule as far as we can. Again, most people are out. It's me and Backlar holding this place down, so give us some slack here. All right. I think that does it from everything I have to say. We did the poll question. We said what's happening on the site. So I think what we do now, Lucas Holland, is say thank you for hanging out with us and talking about video games. I really appreciate it.
I'm so thankful to be here. It's been fantastic. Yeah. And, if you ever need me to come back on, I'm always available. So, yeah, that would be fantastic.
We would love to have you. Absolutely. Definitely, like I always say, just give me a shout whenever you're available, and usually I'll have slots open during the week, so we'll get you on. Would love to do that. Thank you all for watching and listening. You are the best audience in gaming. We're going to get out of here. Until next time, have a good one. Take care of yourself, and goodbye.